All right, everybody. This is Dr. Beliance from M2M. I've got a good friend of mine, Mike Player. He recently just got 100% using M2M. So we just wanted to have a little informal conversation and kind of tell you about his experience, what we do, and how he got some benefits. So, Mike, we were talking a little earlier. So tell me kind of your background, your story, when you came to us, what was like before M2M, and just tell us what we did and how we helped you out.
All right. Well, like Doc said, my name is Mike Player. I spent 10 years in the U.S. Army from September of 96 to March of 06. And, originally from East Texas and went straight out of high school, went straight in the military, spent 10 years, got out. When I got out, at that point in time, I had just finished up 3 years on drill sergeant duty and went back home. And I was telling Doc Wilson earlier, back in that day, we really didn't have the resources in place that guided us through this process of what benefits are available, how to get them, and what you actually may be entitled to. So about 6 months after I got out, I got a letter from the VA saying that I had received 30% for the claims that I had made as I was out processing. And I was telling Dr. Williamson that, hey, I just took it and I didn't research anything else. And it took probably 15 to 16 years of my father-in-law, who's retired military, and a couple of friends of mine telling me, you need to appeal. And so I guess it was mid to late 2022, I actually started an appeals process on my own and went from 30% to 40% with just my lower back. And I just left it at that until the summer of 23. Had broke my leg in 2 or 3 places and was in the VA in Wichita, Kansas, where we live. And I came across the Disabled American Veterans Organization, and they kind of pulled me in and said, hey, this is what we do. So I used them, and it took about 6 or 8 months, and I had a few appointments, and I went through and, was increased to about 80. Well, when I got to 80%, I was going to leave it alone, but the VA had denied all of my mental health claims. And what started for me was just about the time I was getting out of the service. I started, I've had insomnia ever since, and they tried everything. But me being me, and I don't know, I'm not bashing soldiers and airmen and sailors today, but back in that day, it's just something I didn't want to try to suck off the government. I didn't feel like I was entitled to anything, suck it up and move on. But after that, when I got to 80%, and the VA had already diagnosed me with several conditions. The VA was already treating me for these things, but yet they denied the claims. And so a few months went by, and my wife kept telling me, hey, you need to appeal these, you need to appeal these. Well, I was not satisfied with the Disabled American Veterans Organization. So at that point in time, I just started researching. I found some people online, some different groups that claimed to do all this stuff for veterans. And every single phone call I had, Doc, they were like wanting 3 and 4, 5,000 up front. Some of these companies were signing contracts that anywhere went from double or up to 5 times the amount of any back pay that would be received. So you were really signing a contract with these organizations with no guarantees, right? And if you did reach the desired goal or the rate that you felt you were deserving of, it was going to take you 2 to 3 years to pay these companies off. And so I didn't want anything to do with it. But then I came across an ad for Meal to Millions, and it was very simple. Just the lingo, I understood it. And I sent I think I saw it on Facebook is where I saw the ad. And it was very simple. Like, if you're interested, just reach out, let us know. And I felt very comfortable because everybody was a veteran. All the guys and gals that were working for M2M, they were already at 100%. And so I sent a message, and there was a fellow named CJ that got back in contact with me within, I don't know, less than 24 hours.
CJ Lambus, he's a good one. He's a good man.
Oh, he's great. I mean, the guy could sell, he could sell ice to an Eskimo, I'm telling you. But it wasn't just his salesmanship. He wasn't really trying to sell M2M. His approach was, hey, we're all veterans. We know how the VA and the Department of Defense can really give the shaft to guys and gals, that are veterans today. We want to help you get to where you are deserving of. And it wasn't a lot of fluff. Obviously, any of us that spent time in the military, how to jam it out, how to fluff and blow smoke. But CJ wasn't like that. And so was talking to him, and I was like, all right, dude, let's talk coin. Because I'm a pastor in central Kansas, agricultural community. You know, we don't, now I make really good money for where I'm at. But prior to reaching this 100%, I mean, and I have an extremely educated wife. We don't have just extra funds laying around. And so CJ, he told me, he's like, hey, this is the rate up front. And we don't take anything else. We don't start working until we reach the acquired goal. And he said, and I said, okay, but what's the catch, bro? Because this is too good to be true. He's like, we have a 20% of any back pay received is our final fee. And I'm like, and all right, well, I'm gonna let you talk to my wife because she, you know,
Smart man.
You know what I mean? We're one the same. So there's with decisions like this that are life altering, you know, we always get both perspectives. And so CJ talked to my wife, Angelica, and after just a few minutes, she looked at me and just gave me a thumbs up. And so CJ sent over the contract and we paid the upfront fee, and it was so easy. I just kept waiting for it to be a scam. I was like, there's no way. And I remember Deb Posey got in contact with me, and she's a female, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so
we have a Devin, and then we got a Dev. That's the same role, same name. So yeah, Posey.
Dev got in contact with me. She's like, hey, within a week of signing the contract, like, hey, Doc Wilson, this is this calendar. Booyah. I'm like, dude, anytime. I don't care because this is where I'm at in life. And it was within a week. You had sent me, you had called me. We talked a little bit about my case and where, you know, what I feel. I sent you over, you know, you asked for me to email you my latest, you know, decision letters and medical records. And so because my wife and I have been fiddling with this stuff for about a year and a half, you know, it was so simple. You requested my medical record, you know, access to my VA records and any personal, you know, primary care physicians that I'd had after exiting the military.
Yeah, it takes a lot of trust on the front end. You know, you got a guy in a company, like you said, you know, who's real, who's legit, somebody calling you on the phone, this kind of stuff. So, yeah, you know, I obviously in retrospect, I appreciate the trust, and I'm one of those guys who wants to earn it. And I think that, you know, what makes us a little different is that we get involved kind of early, whether, you know, however long it takes to talk to me. But when you think about how companies are structured, and see, I didn't know anything about VA disability myself. I trust the processes. I got out of the military a little over a year ago. You know, even as a physician and who had done tons of med boards, I understand putting together big packages for people to influence the DOD or the service branches. And I understood that the VA process was concurrent with that, but I didn't really know what it meant until I got out. And I just went through my exams and went to the CMP with a BDD claim. And I just kind of, you know, like you said about the military people, you know, almost on the other side of it, you also know when people are going through the motions with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, trust the process. It'll all work out, just to kick your can down the road. And like, you know, I had no expectations either. I wasn't, you know, not really have any goals. I just put my stuff down on paper, been through a lot of stuff in my own life and, you know, the full spectrum. I just learned a lot from my ratings. And, you know, I'm an orthopedic surgeon trained, but I have to go back and finish a couple years of residency because the way the Navy moved me around and what they did to me and with me. And, you know, I needed a break. And so I just started looking at my own ratings, and that does not make sense, right? Like, why did this category get this? But I would say, you know, I'm biased because I was an ortho guy. Yeah. Like, why did my musculoskeletal stuff get kind of these low ratings, even though it was very clear? Even I was still in service when this stuff happened. So, you know, I just started reaching out to friends and saying, hey, you know, what happened? You know, what happened to your claim? People who I'd worked with before, previous patients, they were no longer, you know, my patients. I was out of the military. And I just started writing nexus letters, kind of archaically, like, nobody taught me how to do this. You know, that's the thing is that, you know, you had mentioned how different companies and like it's kind of a mysterious process, old school versus these new young guns who get out, who have a lot of information, you know, whether it's Reddit threads or just Google searches. And it's just disjointed. And like I experienced that as somebody who like, you know, should have been the expert on it to begin, but like nobody knows this stuff. And I think that's with a reason, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right?
Yeah.
I hate to be conspiratorial, but that's the truth, right? Yeah. And it's scattered. And we talk about things like ratings. Well, to me and a lot of us in the military, when you say you rate something, it's either you do or you do not, right? Yeah. It's either black or it's white. You either rate BAH or you don't.
Right.
So when you say VA ratings formula, I expected it was like, you read it and it's like, oh, if this, then this. That's not the case.
Yeah.
And I've seen thousands at this point of these ratings, and it's like throwing darts.
Yes.
And it's not just to kick the VA, because there's so many good people in the VA, and I'm so glad that the benefits are there. But what I saw when I was in active duty with folks who didn't do 20 years, who were getting the runaround, and we're going to EAOS because they were burned out. It wasn't the same Marine Corps, the same Navy, with us where I mainly was, but they were like, I can't do this for another 5 years, Doc. Like, I can't even discipline my Marines. I'm scared of getting in trouble with the woke Navy or whatever. And, they're just, in general, they're just tired, burned out, physical. And they say, I'm just going to get out. So I said, well, just give me a few months to, start to get you to these doctors and stuff. So, because you have nothing in your record. When I entered into the GMO space, I pull up somebody in front of me who I didn't know, look at their medical record. It was like Motrin, back pain, but no details.
Right.
And so it's like, well, what kind, is it legitimate back pain? Do you have radiculopathy? And that's just how my brain worked. So I started building people's records just for due diligence. Right. But then I realized that there were a lot of other things, right? The common things that people had, which was behavioral health problems, right? Yeah. Real depressed people that didn't cry wolf and need to go talk to, a therapist every time they were upset or sad or miserable, frankly, or, real suicidality that's hidden under the shades. And I know you as a pastor, me as a physician, we come at it from different angles, but it's right. When somebody's not good.
That's right.
And the things I had been through in my life, I could sense that. So I just started intervening, started working up the things I was good at with musculoskeletal, getting them to, behavioral health, talking to people, putting that on paper, giving them a diagnosis, right? I mean, anybody could do that, but nobody was doing it.
Right.
And the other things that maybe I didn't know as well, I'm going to get you to a specialist who does. So trying to be a good primary care doctor when even I didn't want to be a primary care doctor, but I was. And then I got all this information, right? So they follow up with me and I'm looking at it and saying, I just, sent a guy out of the military with a med board who had less than you. So I literally know how to get you medically retired. Is that something you're interested in? Right. I didn't try to punitively do it to him.
Right.
Say, well, you would do that for me? I said, well, yeah. I mean, if you really aren't fit for full duty, then why don't we do this? Because that's the truth. We have evidence of it. You're not good to go. So you're fit for full duty is kind of a lie, frankly. Right. So instead of worrying about spreadsheets and readiness being green as opposed to red, let's do what's best for the individual with truth and evidence. And so I digress because that's how this all started. Me working with M2M. And, the reality is I didn't want to be an employee, right? I didn't want to just sit and be a subcontracted unit of some law firm or some company. And that's when I talked to Cole Tenney on a whim from a friend of a friend. And he was a different kind of guy. Like I said, I could read the room real well. I know when somebody wants something from me as a physician, just as a human. And it was just different. And it was the ground up. And I told him, it's like, help me help you. And then you help me. And let's make this work symbiotically. And so I have a presence in the company, which is different. We have such great people around us like CJ, the Devin, Dev, all our sales team, all our back end help. And it's great. And I try not to make this all about me, but name me another company where you can talk to somebody with my background who thinks and talks straightforward, right? Has been in the military, that understands the VA process, that helps you strategize what you need to do as opposed to just what do you want to do. Right?
There's none of them out there. None of them out there are like into millions. There's not. And that I said that to say CJ gained my trust in the 10 to 15 minute conversation on the phone. And I don't trust people. I mean, maybe I'm a pastor.
Most of us don't know. I mean, our demographic.
I don't. Since when I left the military and I stopped being around people that chewed the same mud as I did, had been through the same stuff. I don't trust you. But CJ, I did. And, even just the cost, a lot of people will look at an upfront cost and like, nah, I can't do that. Well, I'll put it to you like this. I felt so comfortable that I was willing to give my debit card number to CJ and trust him with it because I knew that the company, Into Millions, was not to jerk people, the veterans around, and having direct access and contact with the doc is something that only just, it makes this company, the cohesiveness. It's almost like to those of us that are needing help, it's like y'all are pulling us in to be a part of this family. And I could tell that CJ, and after talking to you, I was truly in good hands. I've got a friend that went with a different organization. I'm not going to say their name because of what, any type of issues, but he paid double the amount up front and hasn't gone anywhere. And it's been over a year and a half. I signed a contract in the first part of June with Into Millions, and I had my meeting with you was in less than 10 days from signing the contract. My initial psych mental health screening was less than 2 weeks after that. And then everything was submitted, uploaded. The psych that y'all referred us to, her Nexus letter, her eval was sent to me. I sent it to you. It was uploaded. And then the beauty, the icing on the cake was about a month and a half after everything was sent up. And I had, I reached out to you, to Dev, and I was like, hey, everything's been submitted. Is there anything else I need to do? Dev said, let me check with the doc. She did. Like, no. Well, it was about 72 hours later, you called me personally. You're like, hey, Mike, we talked. If you remember that day, we had about a 30-minute phone conversation. You're like, oh, I just want to see if you would like an additional Nexus letter. And I was like, well, yeah, absolutely I would, because that's you. If anybody that knows how the VA works, the more evidence you have and the more voices that you have speaking for you in evidence, concrete, something tangible, that's going to work to your benefit. And so you wrote me another one. I had that about a week later electronically. I just submitted that. And it was about a month after that, somewhere around in there, I started checking my claims. And I had made two separate claims. One was for PTSD right off the bat. And then after talking to you again, getting a little more education, you're like, hey, you need to do these as secondary claims, because I had already filed and been denied for them a year prior. And so I did an additional intent to file the secondary claims with the pre-existing service-connected conditions. Well, you and I had talked about it, and even reading your Nexus letter, you're like, hey, we're just going to shoot for the stars. If it's a no-go, we'll regroup. Listen, we're not going to stop because we all believe that you'll be here. Well, I went so far as to call the VA and say, hey, cancel the PTSD claim. I know there's not enough evidence in my military records. And we'll just go to secondary claims, because the research I've done, I'm talking to you, my secondary claims were pre-existing, were documented, they were strong, and we all felt that was a good case. Well, for whatever reason, the PTSD claim never got voided out. It just kept going through the process. There's 8 steps, right? And so it made it all the way down to step 5, I think, step 5 of 8. And then I got in the habit of looking like every day, and I'd reach out to Dev. I'm like, Dev, how long did it take you? And she's like, well, I got really lucky. Mine was done in 10 days. She said, but I do know that they're backdated. So I even went so far as to call the VA a couple of times, Doc, and try to check the progress. And they were like, hey,
that's a process.
It's being processed. I know you're, don't get too anxious on it. And they were, the reps that I spoke to, the VA reps, they were great. They would even go so far as to send me letters, every couple, 2 or 3 weeks, like, hey, essentially, hey, honey, it's still being processed. And so then I checked one day, and it jumped back up to step 3. And if anybody knows, if you looked at it, step 3 is they're gathering more evidence. So then I get a letter. The VA has outsourced. They wanted one more psych eval from someone other than from Dr. Williamson or anybody connected with Millions. And it was in Wichita, Kansas. And I went down there, and her name was, I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if there's anything wrong with that, but very sweet doc. Went in, was there with her almost 2 hours. And part of that, I told her, I said, hey, I hope you don't think I'm trying to fake this stuff. She's like, honey, I knew in the first 2 minutes when you walked in here. And so that was a great appointment. And literally 7 days later, I got a phone call from a rep at the Disabled American Veterans. I thought that they were already done. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know the VA made a decision. I was like, okay. And said, you're at 100% total and permanent. And I was like, are you serious? He's like, 100%. And so because of your Nexus letter, that also, and that last psychiatrist that I met with, she had all that stuff, and she looked, and it kind of steered her questions and things of this sort. And I mean, I knew what 100% I could get there. But getting that total and permanent is not something they just pass out every day. And so I didn't ask for that. I didn't try to persuade the doctors or you, Dr. Williamson. And from the documentation through the process of millions and that last eval that I had, I mean, they went above and beyond. Like I said, I got 100% total and permanent. They have an additional increase in that for those that are primarily homebound. That was thrown in there. So, I mean, I could not have been more satisfied with.
I'm happy for you, Mike. I mean, we talked at length, and our private conversation when we did our first phone call, strategic medical consult, and that's what we kind of call it, right? Is let's look at the forest for the trees. But I remember our conversation. I remember everybody's. I'm kind of that guy. Like I can remember. I don't remember people's names all the time, but I remember the conversations. And seeing somebody like you or anybody, right? Because let's be honest, like sometimes we relate more to other people and things. But the truth is that I remember our conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people, if anybody I've talked to is listening to this video, it's not just let's check a box and let me rush you off the phone necessarily, right? And that's not for shtick or for anything else. It's because I'm a human being too, and I actually care about this stuff, because when you're going through a hard time or even just getting a raw deal and just kind of sucking it up like a man does, or a woman, right? Tough person does. It's frustrating, but you don't want to whine and complain about it, right? But I can't stand it, because from my end is something I like to fight for people that are getting screwed over. And it was whether it was, advocating for a surgical patient or whatever. Now doing this with veterans is, I see the system for what it is, not because I have the answers. I'm not necessarily smarter than anybody else. I'm really hardworking and I'm honest. And I like to think about the what ifs, right? What is the worst case scenario? What is the most likely? And when you do something enough times, if you're the right kind of person and you're self-critical and you're not just arrogant, you always process improving, right? So that's what I had built over the past year was, why did this person's claim work and this one's didn't, right? What were the common things? What were the different things, right? And I'm trying to piece together what the VA algorithm is. And because they sure don't post it, they don't follow their own rules. Some of these appeals that last for years, secondary claims, supplemental claims, when's the time to do a new initial, what type of evidence is needed, does it need to be new evidence? And it's super complicated. And the truth is that there's not a rigid list. So it's almost like, it's not just a straight, I talk about mechanics a lot. Like if you want somebody, to make it easy for you, like a company that just, gives you a templated sheet, say, here you go, that's it. Like, we'll help you through the process. That's like a Jiffy Lube of Valvoline. You don't leave your car. They're more worried about, selling you wiper blades than actually looking at your transmission, right? I prefer to be the guy who works in the back alley mechanic shop that's got grease all over him, who's going to shoot you straight and tell you what's wrong, even if you don't want to hear it. So like your situation, I'll talk about that for a second, because I see that a lot, is where you got guys who've got anywhere from 50 to 80%. And hopefully some of that's musculoskeletal, because the VA is getting worse and worse and worse and worse about giving good service connection. So even service connecting it to begin with, and reasonable ratings for things like back, radiculopathy, major destructive osteoarthritic joints, major problems, right? I say this clichely, but it's cliche for a reason. Like, not all back pain is created equal, right? Back pain is a symptom, not a diagnosis. So is it because you have terrible facet joint arthritis, to talk a little shop with you, right? Like if you don't work on a car, you don't know belts and hoses from whatever, right? You just got to take his word for it. But I get frustrated because the VA doesn't care. I mean, and I don't mean like don't care about you. They don't care about the detail. They stick to their little script. And if it's abnormal, they tend to deny it because it makes them uncomfortable. What's that? That's not what we normally do. So what I do is I try to get people to get evidence. Number one, if you don't have medical treatment or some sort of good documentation, it's going to fail. It's just, even if it's true, like my knee is destroyed, you trust that to go to a CMP exam, you to get rated appropriately, it's not going to happen. Right. You need real medical evidence. And then you also need some sort of back-end documentation. So we had our consult, our strategic medical consult, where we talked about the work and your claim and Jesus. And we talked about everything, because that's what matters, right? Being a human being. So we built rapport, which is legitimate. You trusted me to tell you the truth, was that, what do we need to do? We need to get a psych some sort of independent medical opinion, right? A lot of times that alone does it. But if the VA wants to do their thing, and if it's legit and we have good evidence, sure, if they want to bring you into a psychiatrist to talk to you again, I advocate for people to do that. It takes a little more time, but I'm a believer in do things the right way. If it takes longer, who cares? Finish the football game, go score a touchdown. Right. Don't try to kick a long field goal because it's easier. The harder path, road less traveled, usually is the right choice in life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I look at your claim, and some people need what are called DBQs, right? Where you basically have all the evidence. Like, let's say it's for migraines, right? That's something very easy. You're documented, diagnosed with migraines, you're treated for migraines, you have the symptoms, you have a migraine log that we do. I can look at your migraine evidence and all that, and I can say, yeah, this is service connected more likely than not. Here's the evidence, VA, and I sign that form. In your case, you had a lot of extraneous things that we needed to tie up loose ends that you can't do DBQs for. And DBQs are like the formal VA document that basically is a CMP exam output. When you do a CMP exam, a DBQ gets formed. Well, that works for some things, but if you're talking to me or if you're remote, you can't do a musculoskeletal or a real psychiatric DBQ unless you're a specialist. But you sure can write a nexus letter, right? And the way I did my nexus letter for you and other people is instead of writing just for one diagnosis, here is your nexus between this and this. That's it. I do what's called a summary nexus letter. I made that up, but that's the truth. Is I'll tell your story, give the symptoms, all the things that you're going through. And then I'll say, hey, look, I think this, and this that we just talked about, which was present back then. Maybe he wasn't, complaining or going to the doctor back then, but he sure as heck has evidence of it now. And here's how the symptoms that he has now actually impact his life. And that's from talking to you guys and it's being real. It's not a templated nonsense document, that's why it takes time. And I think, as we're growing kind of rapidly here, and I'm glad about that because you're just one tip of the iceberg because we're getting a lot of people getting a lot of great results and our company is showing that we're blowing up in a good way. So it might take a couple extra weeks to talk to me or get a document produced or this, but I'm telling you, it's worth it because when I got out, I called some of these companies just to understand that market. And I talked to them as a veteran, asking for some help and I wanted to know what they were really doing, right? Like I wasn't really going to pay, I don't think, but I realized that they were ripping people off. Like you mentioned the pay structures. And you weren't going to talk to a doctor. The doctor was going to, go through the motions with you on the outsource, a peripheral medical entity, give you a piece of paper and say, have a good one.
Yeah,
but nobody had a medical personnel that was actually a physician that knew this stuff, that knew the language and was like legit. And I would say that that's how I would market myself as is a call it like it is. And we talked strategy. Like you mentioned, how would someone know? I mean, really, to do a secondary claim, to do an initial claim, to do a supplemental, should you appeal this? Should you not appeal this? What elements do you need? What type of evidence do you need? What type of back-end documentation do you need? It's complicated. And it's complicated to me every day. Every person I talk to is different, even though I see patterns and stuff. And I'm not necessarily Rain Man or anything, but I see the common threads in a lot of these things. And as we grow, I just want to always maintain that we stay the same in a way, which is keeping conversations that we had in that first week we talked. That's important, right?
Right.
Like, can you give a little bit of, we call it a strategic medical consult, an SMC. So tell me what you got out of that strategic medical consult with me. We talked, like I said, for about 45 minutes about the whole thing. But what did that do for you, hopefully to give you some trust in me, but more importantly, in your process in Mill to Millions at large?
Well, again, like I said, CJ, talking to him just that first day, 15 minutes, he had my trust. But and the same thing with Dev, they give you their cell phone numbers. You can call us 24/7. So the rapport from day one built with the company is ridiculous. But of course they all spoke highly of Doc at that time, Wilson, now Alliance. They spoke highly of him, like, okay, well, that's just not something that we do. If when you're in the military, like back when you and I were in, it's one thing to be part of a team and stuff, but to elevate one individual like that, I was like, all right, this doc must be legit. But they explained to me it wasn't just how great Doc Wilson was. They explained to me the strategy of it. Like, Doc Wilson is a vet. Doc Wilson, he cares about veterans, and here's kind of his strategy and the processes that you can expect. So I was already briefed before you called me that day of what to expect with my meeting with you. And so so when you call and I was expecting, a typical call with a physician. If I got 5 minutes, I was going to be ecstatic. But you didn't just start out with my file, my claim, my medical evidence, what I was trying to do. You started out getting to know Mike Player. And so, like I said, you inquired about what I do for a living, my faith. We talked faith. And then we found a common thread in each other, more than just being veterans. And so that increased my trust in the company, because if you can get a physician to call you at home, and that was on a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, it was not your typical like work week time whenever you called. And that just really stuck in me. I'm like, here's a physician that's taking the time out to call each veteran and have these meetings, these strategic medical consults. And it's not a 5 to 10 minute check the block. It was like 30 to 45 minutes of getting to know me, what I had been through. We shared some common things there. And so my trust just grew exponentially at that point. And the only way that I can really put it into words is I trust this physician, this company, with not just my records, but the future of my life, my healthcare, the benefits I'm going to receive.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal
financially. I mean, it just, some vets may not think that the increase from 80 to 100 is that big. It is. It's a really big, it doubled.
Yeah.
More than doubled.
And for your situation, exactly.
I'm talking about benefits for your spouse, your kids, educational, all that stuff. And so
that's one of the biggest, like getting health care for your family.
Oh yeah.
If you already have insurance as a secondary insurance, if people don't know about that and they don't broadcast that very much, to me, and that's why I laughed when I first heard about Milton Millions. I kind of chuckled. I'm like, that's what kind of name is this?
Well, the name alone kind of, that was a burn on me. When I saw millions, I was like, yeah, whose millions? The veterans' millions that we're owed or entitled to. But here's the biggest thing. I felt like I told you earlier, I felt, Doc Wilson, that I was part of the Meal to Millions family from day one. And then getting to talk with you, I understood that I was being treated and handled by people who actually cared for veterans. And it's obvious just because in the rates, right? This is our rates. We're upfront about this. If you decide to go with us, here we are. If you don't, we love you anyway, bro. But good luck finding a company that's going to take care of you.
And nothing against companies or people that supporting veterans. Let me tell you this. Here's the truth, though. And I speak freely. That's what I love about my job, probably the most. I think I like a lot of things. Mm-hmm. It's different from what I'm used to. People, when I tell people what I do that I'm passionate about, like other physicians, they kind of like look at me funny, like disability, right? Like that's got kind of a nasty connotation, right?
It does.
It's like a lawyer, like that kind of stuff. But no. The truth is that there's a lot of good companies that want to help people. But I really, as a veteran, and again, this is going to come off maybe bad to some people, but when they're kind of using that just to promote themselves. Oh, we love veterans. Thank you for your service. Right. But then, so what, but like, really, thank you for your service. But, like I can't stand that. And as a veteran, like, I don't want people to go through the motions with me saying, patting me on the back. Thank you so much for what you did. But, get in line with the rest of them, but we're going to say we care. That drives me nuts, insincerity. But, like you said earlier, like we're very organized. We don't just let anyone, just man the phones. Like we don't do that. We are selective with the type of person we have, like CJ and folks in that position, Dev, myself. And that's where I'm getting at, that we, at the expense of capital and financial growth, we're going to stay to what we do, right? Because we are a niche, right? We do things differently. And that's not just a catch punchline. Like, you've got a physician talking with you about a 30,000 foot view of your claim, not just, do this tree, do that tree. Now let's talk about the forest. Right. Let's talk about, there's multiple ways out of this forest, but we got to come together and you have a role in it, right? Never trust the person who said, oh, this is an easy button, right? Like, oh, don't worry, we'll take it from here. Like in life, anything that sounds too good to be true or is easier, you have just no role in it. Give some pause, and I try to stick to my core principles when I talk to everybody, and it's always different. Like I don't read a script. I don't try to say the same thing to everybody. I'm repetitive because that's just my nature, but live by the golden rule, right? When I talk to people, I am the demographic I'm speaking to, right? Regardless of the age and stuff. Some of y'all don't have white hair like me, but
mine's coming.
Yeah, that's right. You can color it. No, it's all right. No. It's good, man. Well, like I try to live by the golden rule. I try to treat people the way I want to be treated.
I will say that I never felt like you just said something that people, if they watch this interview or they listen to anything, if you are a veteran and you sign that contract with Mill to Millions, you will not feel like you're just standing in line with thousands of people. That was the thing that just kind of drew me to it. And it gave me a sense of peace, because I know there's veterans out there, Doc, that have been in the process for years. I mean, guys and gals that really poured their heart and soul into the military and got out, and they're at a 30-40% rating, and they've got legitimate issues and they just can't. I felt like I was in the front of the line, and I didn't get passed between 50 different employees. CJ, Dev, and Dr. Lionson. Those were the three. And they stayed in contact with me. CJ, he did initially, but once I got put under Dev, she was constantly like, "Hey, Mike, how you doing? Are you hanging in?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm just waiting." So it wasn't a assembly line treatment. That is the complete opposite of what Millions is. You're treated with such care and such personal, with a personal approach that, again, it almost makes you feel like you're back and part of something bigger than yourself. And so, and I have to say this, I've got, a few remaining friends that are in the process for the VA, and they've been in it for years. Once I signed with Mill to Millions, that was June the 19th. I signed the week before. I think it was like the 12th or 13th. I'd have to pull my contract and look. Within 1 week, and I talked to you, and you said, "Hey, bro, get your intent to files done ASAP." And it was
everybody do it.
Y'all walked me and my wife through the process. So from June the 19th, that's when the things were filed. I got a call on October 19th. "Hey, decision has been awarded. Here it is." Boom. So, 120 days, 4 months. And with the work that you guys put in, and
part of it to you, credit to you as well, because like I said earlier, you have to do the things as well, right? You have to be a submitter. You have to communicate. You have to go to exams if there's CMP exams or follow-ups. And yes, we did a bunch of stuff, and we will. But that's the truth, is that it's and you said family. It is. It's a partnership. Right. I also came from a very blue collar. You don't. You get what you earn, right? Everybody the same, even if your expectations are to coast. But I'm the guy, our conversation with people maybe a little different conversation than we have is, I'm going to real talk with you, right? Out of love, respect, but I'm going to shoot you straight, whether you like it or not, right? And it is not to get something. It's not to make my life easier. I would make the things hard for myself, like writing a Nexus letter. The thing is that here's the hard thing: is not everybody needs a Nexus letter. Sometimes a Nexus letter is counterproductive depending on the situation. In your situation, it was needed because it was kind of our last angle. So you want to save stuff like that for when you really know it's going to be effective. And in your case, it was super effective.
Yeah, it was.
Building up other, some people fixate on certain problems they have. Maybe it's a knee pain or something like that. And I have to tell them, like, listen, I'm not wearing my orthopedic surgeon, like your primary care hat. What bothers you the most? Let's go that route. I got to tell you, yes, but we don't want to put the cart before the horse with something that I'm here to tell you that maybe you're right. Maybe you'll get a huge rating for your knee, but I'd write a case report about it because that's not very common. But I can tell you that your migraines or your sleep apnea or your behavioral health will beat your knee 99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily a betting man. Maybe I am. But if I were to be one, I'd make the bet on the thing that, the house rules, play the game to win. Right. And that's what I'm very competitive with people. And having a conversation like this makes my weekend because I was so excited to talk to you. And again, it's not, you're special, but you're not that special in a way, right? You're another brother and sister of mine. When I see somebody get that outcome, I swear to you, I get so fired up.
Yeah.
Like I walk on cloud nine, I said, why don't we do an interview, kind of off cuff. I've never done this before. I couldn't even work the volume earlier.
Yeah.
That I want to share your story because of how awesome it was and how you were stuck, and you were probably going to stay stuck. And that's what I don't like about it. If the VA did the right thing, I would be happy to never work for M2M, and every one of these companies disappeared. I promise you that if the VA just did what they were supposed to, what they say they would do, like on paper, good. Like our job is done here. But we all know that when there's billions of dollars at play in the government and opportunity to reallocate resources that are appropriated,
right?
Unfortunately, in the world we live in today, and especially for the guys who got, you know how many people I see at 10% for tinnitus that served in Kuwait. And that is the hardest one for me because, you know, I've got family members that were frozen chosen Marines, Pacific Theater Marines, no officers, certainly no doctors. So, you know, when I talk to those guys who actually saw some real combat, you know, in the earlier era, not to display any other time of service, but the truth is that those guys are stuck.
Right.
They have no records of their military stuff. To getting things service connected are hard, and that just irks me because why do we make it hard on those guys to get 100% when you got guys that have been in only a couple years now that seemingly cakewalk because they're smart, right? Now, nothing against it for doing your due diligence, keeping your records and knowing the system. But do you think somebody that's 65 years old that didn't think like that, has no idea? Some of them don't even really understand the website about the VA. They're reading Reddit. It's no way, man. They're stuck at 10 to 30% because they said, thank you, I didn't expect this. But then 30 years later, oh, lo and behold, they've got terrible back stuff. They've got legitimate PTSD from combat. They've got, you know, their life is falling apart. They've got diabetes, hypertension, every joint in their body is falling apart, and they need help. And like, I don't know. I don't know where this thing goes or how the VA changes things, but you know, I'm excited to be a part of trying to like individualize it, like you said, because if you try to make it one size fits all, it's just doomed to fail, right?
It is. I mean, because every one of the veterans' cases are different. Like for my own, you know, I got the tinnitus, you know, I got that. I got the basic 30% from a combat arms guy. And you just said it like, hey, I didn't expect this. Thank you. Let me suck it up, move on, and just deal with it. And here I am 18 years. I've been out 18 years. I've been out since 06. And so it wasn't until I had been out probably 6 to 8 years that, you know, the behavioral health thing that started coming in, I was like, well, this isn't the military's fault. And it wasn't until I met with M2M, I signed the contract, I talked with you, and even the last exam that I had with that psychiatrist, she was like, you know, I was verbalized. I was honest. I'm like, you know, this stuff didn't happen until this. It's not the Army's fault. And she said, well, honey, but here are the precursors that started while you were still a vet, you know, still in service. So the precursor, and so it just all linked together. And so what I would tell people is don't give up, even when you feel like you're stuck, because for me, you know, I thought there were, you know, there's nothing that the VA says about insomnia or anything else like that. Well, after talking to you, and then they just tied it all together to the point that, I mean, I was 80% when I signed with M2M, but when I was awarded 100% total and permanent, that was extra. So you can take away the 80 that I have for knees, back, ankles, sciatica, and everything else. You could take that away, and I would today would still be at 100% total and permanent because of M2M and the work that y'all put in. And I mean, it was very, very minimal effort required on mine and Angelica's part. We just had to upload some records, make sure, you know, if you have appointments, be there. That's all that, you know, that you need to do. Look presentable. Don't show up all smelling like, you know, a brewery and ragtag. Show up like you're, you know, presentable. And so that's what we did. And I you know, I only had one appointment on the outside of M2M, one.
And I think that's one of the benefits is that if you go through our, you know, and I hate to say algorithm because it's not necessarily, but you know, I built my SOP based, and it's always changing based off of 10 years as an orthopedic surgeon,
right?
Being a GMO for 4 years and dealing med boards, this chaos new world of, you know, kind of my post-military, what am I doing phase.
Right.
Don't want to rush back to working 100-hour weeks as an orthopod right now. Right. And then just talking to people. And so like this thing is a mix mash, but the truth is that to anybody who even is considering doing a claim, or our friends and family or anybody listening to this thing, go get seen by your primary care doctor.
Yes.
tomorrow
Yes.
with a list of your issues, right? And
Right.
and you can think of it from a VA claim status, but I would say, your behavioral health, discuss it with your primary care doctor.
Yep.
Go to that therapy, even if you don't believe in it.
That's right.
Get on some medication for migraines, get some help, get it documented. And I would say this too, keep organized records.
Yes.
Make your record, and for every issue you're going to claim, make a new document, new PDF.
Yep.
Behavioral health evidence,
Yep.
and then go and do migraine evidence, back evidence. And by organizing that, you are setting yourself up for success with data sharing with other companies, whether it's us or someone else, with your other physicians, with the VA. Because when you submit your VA review, as a PDF document, if you send a mix mash, just your blue button report, that could be 600 pages, right?
Yeah.
How long it's out. And you got to understand, and I'm not saying that they're doing malfeasance, but human nature says that if you have 600 pages and want them to read 12 of them, do you think that an administrative desk job?
You locked up.
No way. I don't believe it for 1 second. Make it idiot proof. Do the hard work in advance. Get some help. If you can do these claims on your own and think you got enough meat to do it, submit it. And especially with initial claims, there's nothing wrong with just going to see your doctor and submitting a claim. The VA should do the right thing. You shouldn't need a company. And I'd say people love to talk to you and help you build a strategy on how to do that. But if you're thinking about doing a first claim, get off your butt and do it. Go get seen by your doctor. It's not magic. I can help you with what's important and how to do it, and give you some steering and some guidance and some forms and talk about it. But in the end, you got to take, and our people got to take responsibility for their own outcomes, right?
Right.
If the VA does you wrong, or you truly are lost and want help, we're here to help you. And I think that that's a good position to be in, because, we're hungry to grow, but we're busy now. And that's a unique thing, which I like, because I like to be rewarded for what we do and our outcomes, not just, oh, you've got good marketing and you're pulling a fast one on people. No, I want this to go viral in a way that our community, especially, is word of mouth mostly, right? Like many of us are just going to, see an ad and jump on it. I know I wouldn't, right? I'm very skeptical. Even when I see anything, I'm skeptical, as you should be. But as we grow, I put the task to our people at M2M. And the funny thing is that all of the people are, our executive suite, to our front office, to everyone, to our support staff, we are all veterans that work together and we communicate well, and we're on we literally have the same mission, which is so cool. And companies talk about this. I'm doing an MBA right now for myself, and people write theoretical papers about this stuff. And I'm going, yeah, we do that without even really talking about doing that. Like, we are literally, we got the same heartbeat on this thing, and we want to stay organic, and we don't want to be like the other companies. Like you said, I could make a list of them.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm so skeptical.
Yeah. And maybe, a couple people say, oh, maybe you should work for us and that stuff. I said, absolutely not. I don't want to work for you as I don't want to work at your Valvoline. I don't want to be a manager of Valvoline. I want to be the one who is free to speak my mind, because I know I can't be myself if I work for you. Yeah. But the truth is that it's the honest, and that's what you're getting with me. If you want somebody that's going to sugarcoat stuff and give you, a pat on the back, they're theirs. We're not the ones, but if you want somebody to shoot you straight and tell you that these are the steps that will more likely than not lead to success, then that's us, right? Straight,
truly.
And again, we'll talk about politics on the phone. We'll talk about faith. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about the VA. We'll talk about the Navy and Marine Corps. Let the Army guys pick on me a little bit. But how many more hoo-yahs I got to hear? I don't know. But,
well, I'll say that it regardless of the fact that's a great way, a phrase of putting it. I could tell the heartbeat that CJ had was the same heart that Dr. Williamson had, the same heartbeat that Deb Posey had, because just in how I was treated. I can't speak. I'm not going to speak against the VA. I'm not going to speak against the other companies that are out there. But from a veteran standpoint, absolutely 100% skeptical, even with M2M. But
as you should be.
So it was so easy. Just, hey, yep, here's my name, here's my phone, my number. Go ahead and give me a call and we'll chat. That was just a simple, like, if this is you and you want some information, give us your number. We'll reach out very soon. And
no catches, right? I mean, no
there
catches.
was no catches. And so, but
Exactly.
one of the things that, I mean, even sold me even after signing the contract was whenever I had the consult with you, that's what it was about. It was getting to know me. It was getting to know my case, so that, like you said, we're going to stop looking at just one tree. Let's look at the forest. And so, you were straight up honest with me. You were like, yeah, Mike, I think from looking at your records, because I had already, like, you said, keep good records. Thankfully, I married somebody who is a freak of nature. So all of my medical records were very easy. Just, drag and drop and send it to you. And you had already looked through that, and you were upfront and honest. Like, all right, dude, yeah, I believe that we have a good platform to try to reach the desired goal, which for me, it was 100%.
Yep.
I didn't mention anything about total and permanent because I know that's a hard thing to get, but you were upfront and honest. And I think that's one of the selling points for M2M is that, hey, yes, you're going to have to sign a contract. But when CJ said, we don't stop until we reach the desired goal, 100%, every veteran is not going to get 100% because, quite frankly,
Amen.
you may not have that. You may not be there yet. Not saying that you won't get there one day.
You were taking my philosophy, and again, we don't rehearse this. Like, this is just the truth.
Right.
But the reality is that again, starting back in surgery, if you came to me and you had blown out your ACL, young guy, you blew out your ACL, and I said, don't worry, man, we're going to fix it right up and tell you what you need. Like, you're going to be, 6 months from now, you're not going to even know you have this. You'll be faster and stronger than ever. That would be a lie, because I don't know that, right?
Right.
You could have an infection. You could get stiff knee. You could have a re-rupture. You could have a complication. You get a blood clot. You could just have pain, right? Mm-hmm. You may not. So as a good surgeon, and this was beat into me, and it was just part of my ethos in anything, not just surgery or this other stuff with VA claims, you tell people the risks. If you under promise and overperform, people will respect you more. And it's easy to keep things straight when you're not bullshitting people or lie to people.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, our community, we know when people are sugarcoating stuff. And I'll be damned if I ever do that or anybody I'm a part of does it, because we don't. And that's ingrained. No. I have a seat at the table at M2M. We've got great partners. We got a great team. And, my voice is heard and I'm respected in that group, to not just for my ego, because I don't really give a crap. I'm at the point where I don't care, but to be able to influence what we do and how we do it and the way we do it, from the sales saying, hey, we don't promise people we're going to get you 100%, because that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. I talk to some people where I say just straight up, and it's not a great conversation. It's not everybody, but it's a few. Said, yeah, ask. Or if they don't even ask, hey doc, what are the chances I get to 100? And what they don't see is I take notes on every visit for myself, so I can keep Mike player apart from everyone else. And I write personal details, and I write the things I need to know, whatever. And I give an estimation on my own that I don't share with y'all, but I kind of reference it in the thing. I say, oh man, I think this person has an extremely high chance. I never say will or shall get 100%. Eventually, and that's the way I word it to myself, even, and our team, is that if they follow what we talked about, I think there's an average chance this person eventually gets to 100%, or there's an extremely high chance this person, or there's a below average chance that this person's got the elements there to get to 100%. Because the truth is that if you don't have the dysfunction and you don't have the diagnoses and you don't have the history, you don't have the case. We can get increases for the things you have, but what I love about what I do is that I'm not pulling fast ones on the VA either, which is cool, because all I'm doing is taking your legitimate medical evidence and I'm making you think about it, what's missing from what you actually have. So I recruit you to go do it. I don't for you and go through the motions. That would be a little shady if I just gave you, you're a doctor now, here's 17 diagnoses, boom. Could I do that? Yeah, but that would be unethical. So I don't do that. Right. I put it on you and everybody else to go get your evidence. I will be your reviewer of it, and I will do it honestly with my license on the line and my name on the line, which matters to me, especially now that I've changed it. Even that's important. Right.
Yeah.
But the truth is that, I love what I do because I know what I do is above board and honest with people. And, I know there's some people out there who are shady. And, I just want people to know that when you sign up for a company called Mill to Millions, first of all, the name caught me off guard. It's like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Right? Like this, what kind of name is that? But the truth is in your case, you're talking about millions of dollars of benefits. How old are you, Mike?
46.
You've got a lot of years left. And when you add up all of your tax benefits for property now that you are exposed to, you have subject to, you're talking about can't VA for your family as well. So you can get health care. Like, oh my God. Not to mention the money per month and everything else. If you want to go use VRD benefits to get different training, if you're 30 or greater, but if you're 100, it's even easier. Not touch your GI Bill. The truth is that it's actually a brilliant name, because the truth is there are millions of dollars
that I never would have even known that were available to me had I not went with.
I'm just going to do the math. I got to pull up a calculator here. Let's see. So let's say you make $4,000 a month. We're just talking
4,400. Yep.
Okay, let's do it. $4,400 a month times 12. This is all tax free.
I got my bachelor's and my master's through VRE as well.
There you go. So let's just stick to the pay even. Like the other one's unbelievable. So that would be
$52,800 a year.
800, man. So that's a year, tax free. Times, let's say you live 40 more years.
Okay.
$2.112 million.
Yeah.
40 more years. And you better be living up into your 80s and enjoy it. That is tax free. And that is current dollars. We're not even talking about COLA increases. Right. So in hindsight, I made a mistake in judging the name right away. And the truth is that you just now have set up yourself for a retirement that you did deserve. Now you have $2 million to work with that. And I implore everybody else to do this. And I know you a little better because we talked about some real stuff, but use that safety net in this retirement to go do great things. Don't be a part of the problem and don't coast. Beat the perception of veterans of being, a problem and drinking and trouble and just kind of dangerous and not really enjoying society like everybody else does. No, I believe that veterans are business owners and they're good parents and they're, spouses and support in any role. But let's use these millions of dollars of benefits that you earned, that we can help you earn, to go build a life that's better than it ever was before, because you don't have to worry about keeping the lights on or paying your basic bills. It's such an empowering moment that I literally get chills, because I never thought I'd be doing this a year later from getting out of the military. So the joy I get knowing that butterfly effect with that ripple with all these different people I talk to, I'm going to keep going. Right. I'm betting on myself too, because, I don't want to be a cog in the wheel no matter what I do, whether it's orthopedic surgeon, they make so much money and they love it. But you know what? Maybe that's not what I'm here to do the rest of my life. And
can I speak about the numbers, Doc?
Please.
Okay. So for anybody that watches this interview, right, that's how fast, the name is going to catch veterans, because it's just another one that wants to fill their pockets, not their own. But how you explained it, because of this company, my wife and I have been opened up to a life worth of millions of dollars of benefits that I never even knew existed, right?
But you earned
all of that, right? What MWM got from Mike and Angelica Player was $2,800. $2,800 total from the millions that have been opened up to us now. MWM only required $2,800. That was, and so for me, when I listen to my friends that have spent 5 figures and still are in the same spot they were, and even if they do get up, they're going to spend another 3 to 5 years paying these companies off. All I could say, and I've been promoting MWM, look at, man, if you can get out of your contract, I know a company that's legit. And so for me personally, it has had such an impact. I even told my wife this. I said, I would go to work for this company. If they reached out to me and wanted my player, I would leave ministry to go and work for this company because of the mission, because of what y'all are doing, and because of the results. I mean, it wasn't again, I throw a lot of emphasis with Doc here for those that watch this, and I really speak highly of him and try not to put him on a pedestal, but I want to put all of y'all guys on a pedestal, from CJ to Deb to you, because of how I was treated and the results. It was like, it was never brought back up to me like, see, I told you, dude, what, why were you skeptical? It was none of that. It was glad to have helped. Thank you for your service, And so that little bitty tiny fraction of what M2M said, hey, this is up front. And if you reach this goal, it wasn't so much for me in my case. It wasn't if you reach your goal, Mike, when you reach this goal, 20% of any back pay that's received. And I was like, this is too good to be true. Well, guys, girls, whoever watches this, it's not. I mean, they're legit. It took from the time of the day I signed to the day I got 120 days. Not saying that you will be that fast. You could even be faster.
Everybody's different.
You know what I mean? So that, to me, that little tiny fraction, that just to keep you guys going and as you grow, whatever the case may be, was not only well worth it, but again, it's had such an impact on me, is that because that's M2M is the kind of company that veterans are wanting to go, not only be handled and treated by, but that's the kind of companies that we want to work for, because you're still part of something bigger than yourself. You're still part of something that's making an impact and a difference in veterans' lives, and it's for the society as well. So I don't have anything bad to say at all. However I can promote this company, I'll do it till the day I die.
Yeah, I appreciate the trust in the sport. I say that to a lot of people, but just like if you go to the operating room with a surgeon, you're trusting them,
right?
With and money talks, right? Like people, like, and when I talk about anything political, like you can tell somebody's intentions by how they spend their money,
right?
Like you follow somebody's money, their heart typically is also, right? And our company is willing to even modify how we do our payment structures, because I want, and we all do, and I'll speak, for the company, for myself as well, is that as we grow, the idea that we don't incentivize failure, right? We have to have an operating budget to keep things growing, to bring on the right people, and that takes time and the right resources to do things the right way, not change how we do things. But we don't want to get paid for not getting 100%, right? And even if certain people can't get 100%, that's okay. Good. Right. I still want you to be happy with what you have. But the point is like, even if we, go to just a flat fee model of instead of a back pay percentage, then it's even more pure. Who cares? Like, hey, if you get 100%, it's X dollars, right? And our company is always going to be, we are going to be ahead of the curve. We know the population. We're going to fit into what's fair, that we can still return a profit, so where we can grow, because right now we are in the infancy of the growth phase at Milton Millions. And, without giving too many secrets away, very optimistic, but cautiously optimistic, just like with the claim, is that we are going to build this company, and we will continue to, the right way. Yeah. We're going to take care of people's claims the right way. And if it takes more time, good. And if it takes, passing off early wealth and certain outcomes, I don't want $15,000 from Mike Player. I don't, right? I don't want these kind of things. I want to be known that everybody that talked to us with a high percentage said, yeah, he was a little off cuff and stuff, and it was a lot of work, and I had to do all these things, but it was actually worth it, because in the end, I want you to be happy with the job I do, not what I say I'm going to do up front. So conversations like this with folks who have seen are very important, because again, I'm grateful to have gotten to know you, and I hope we stay in contact, and maybe we can network and maybe get you on board.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm here to help the company any way I can. Like I said, I got out in 2006, and 9 years later, every goal that I had set, what I thought I was supposed to be doing in life, it changed, and been in pastoral ministry for the last 10 years. And this company has made such a good impact on my life. I mean, I would literally, if I got an offer, boom, I'm out, I'm gone. That's how much listen, I will promote you guys. It's been great.
Doing what you're doing, because God's got a purpose for you and your circle, and you can touch people. It doesn't have to be about disability claims, but just like me, you can tell when somebody's hurting, and if they're a veteran, it's not about Milton Millions recruitment. It's our responsibility as veterans who are legitimate to reach out and take care of our brothers and sisters. And if it's just encouragement, If it's just checking up on them for real, not the fake kick the can, you good when you know they're not good. If somebody's not good out there, don't buy your little bracelet that says 22 a day. Go help your brother.
Right.
Go help your sister who's hurting. Intervene in their life. Be an example of how to live for those people, your kids, your family members, your friends, and pray. Do whatever you need to do to be awake enough and brave enough to intervene in people's lives. And if you're lucky like me, it's very easy because I'm in a position where I talk to people almost every day. And you're in the pastoral ministries where you are. You're very lucky because you get access to people in different ways. And I'm so excited as Build Millions grows and we got successful people that have our, kind of common thread, but what they're going to do differently, right? Maybe they'll start some new business that has nothing to do with either what we do. That excites me because it's all about who you know. And it is a family and a brotherhood because in the end, it's all about support and getting a bigger network of taking care of our people who are struggling. And as this world changes, especially here, first week of November in an election year in 2024, we have to be there for each other. And
for sure.
Keep doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you. I'm very happy for you and your family.
Thank you, sir.
I hope we stay in touch.
Absolutely, Doc. Anytime, man. If you could, I'll just email you a copy of the latest decision letter.
Absolutely. I study them because that's the stuff, man. That's the key to the exam.
Oh, it is. Like I said, I trust you with it. If you want to share those 2 pages right there will blow your mind, and I know that's a direct result.
I'm going to review it myself, and that's all we need, and I'll protect it like I do all the other documents for sure, my friend.
Your email is still the same, right?
Yeah, it's Doc, D-O-C.
Okay.
At Milton Millions.
I will get that sent over to you today, Doc, and I appreciate everything y'all have done. And again, it doesn't matter to me, night or day, 24/7. You reach out, CJ, Deb, any of y'all, I'm going to jump and help any way I can.
Sounds good, my friend. Thank you for your time on a Saturday, and especially a Saturday where Kentucky's playing Tennessee. And I see that Kentucky up there.
Yeah, that's oh man, I've never wanted to leave Kentucky. I loved it. But
go Vols, baby. We're coming.
Right, thank you, sir.
You take
Have a good
care.
weekend.
Later. Bye.